Chris Hensley is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member of FINRA SIPC, investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
The Houston Midtown chapter of the Society for Financial Awareness presents Money Matters with your host, Christopher Hensley.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Money Matters on KPFT Houston. I'm Chris Hensley. The time is now 11 a.m. Got a great show lined up for you today. Very interesting topic. I guess if I have soapbox topics, this is always one of them. About half of Americans actually have a will or some form of estate planning in place. With the rise of the fear that's going out there with the coronavirus and people are starting to worry, we also had changes at the end of 2019 with the Secure Act when it comes to charitable giving. So we will be speaking today with Jenny Spradling. She is the co-founder of an organization called FreeWill. And so we will do a deep dive into some of these topics and give you some solutions that you might not have thought about before. So please stay tuned. Keep listening. I promise you we're going to have a great show today. With that being said, we always reserve just the first few minutes of the show to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the Houston and the Gulf Coast area when it comes to financial literacy. So here we are at the beginning of March 2020, and you've heard me talk about Houston Money Week for almost every single show. Ramping up, leading up to it, getting there. Well, we are almost there. April is just around the corner. And so this week we did have our partners meeting. We had a leadership team meeting that was hosted by University of Houston downtown. So thank you, Richard Simons, for hosting that there. But we have a lot of exciting announcements as we get close to Houston Money Week. Some of the highlights, the scholarship contest. I would encourage people to go to houstonmoneyweek.org. There's going to be a link there, and we have scholarship contests for middle school, high school, and even adult literacy. So it's a lot of times when people are looking for college funding and non-traditional, where can we get some extra funds for college savings? A lot of scholarships go unclaimed, and so we actually have one there. I would encourage people to get on there, take a look at it, share it, get the information out. That is just one small event or item or thing taking place during Houston Money Week. During the week of April 4th through the 11th, Houston Money Week is a non-profit initiative, a group of nonprofits. There are also city government, local area schools, some for-profit banks that are getting involved with the Community Reinvestment Act, all getting together to provide free financial education webinars, seminars, workshops, classes, all over the city. And this has been going on, I want to say this is the 11th year now, but this has been going on for some time, and each and every year it has ramped up and gotten bigger and bigger, and now we have many, many different organizations participating in it. On the 18th, even after Houston Money Week, the Houston Art Car Parade, we've got a car in the parade this year, so we're excited about that. That this will be our second year to have the car in the parade, and we actually own that, so that's an investment in Houston Money Week. That is an asset that we're keeping from year to year. So each and every year moving forward from last year, we're going to be participating in the Art Car Parade. To find more out about Houston Money Week, I would encourage you to go to the website again. It's houstonmoneyweek.org. And with that, I want to maximize the time that we have with Jenny today because it's such a great topic. Let's get her on the line. Jenny, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me, Chris. so fun.
Absolutely. Well, I usually, start the show off the same way. I'll share a little bit about you to the listeners so that they can get to know you. But I'm going to switch it up a little bit this time and actually have you share a little bit about yourself with the listeners.
Yeah, happy to. And particularly excited to be on the show today because my husband and his whole family is from the Houston area. So really fun to be talking with y'all. So my background is, started out in behavioral economics undergrad, thinking about, what are all the nudges that help people do the good and be the good person that they want to be, that we can put into helping people, save for retirement, contribute to HSAs, things like that. Ended up going for a couple years into consulting and then investing, helped start the first impact investing fund, or the biggest one in North America, and ultimately landed here at FreeWill. And FreeWill has been my dream job. What we do is our mission is to move $1 trillion into high-impact charities, and we do that through helping people make what used to be really complicated gifts, like bequests or QCDs or stock giving.
So I love this concept, this idea. Until I did the research and looked at it, it was not something that I had seen before. And as a financial advisor, I run into people all the time that do not have a will, do not have estate planning in place. Separate from that, with the Houston Money Week organization, I work a lot with nonprofits, and I know we've had some changes this year with the Secure Act and the qualified, the QCDs or qualified charitable distributions. So we got a lot we can talk about. So tell us a little bit about what is FreeWill. What is FreeWill about?
Yeah, so FreeWill is free estate planning that makes it easy for people to protect the people they love and donate to the causes that they care about. So everyone needs a basic will, healthcare directive, financial power of attorney, and we're able to offer that through an online experience 100% for free. And we've had over 100,000 Amerians use the tool in order to create their estate planning, and it usually takes people less than 20 minutes. And really what it is you log on to freewill.com, you answer a series of questions very similar to what an attorney would ask you, and then it auto-populates a PDF that you can print, sign with some witnesses, and you're completely done.
So I need to back up for a moment, because anytime we talk about estate planning or taxes, my compliance department will beat me in the head with a wiffle ball bat if I don't mention the fact that for any time we talk about legal or tax advice, that this is for entertainment purposes only, to consult an attorney or a tax consultant, tax professional for advice. However, with that, we both go over many topics that will overlap here. And you just mentioned 3 documents that were extremely important for people to have. You said the will, the healthcare directive. What was the third one?
Financial power of attorney.
Yes, and so these are things that most people need. And you mentioned FreeWill, that you can actually put this together. It takes about 20 minutes to put together. So it's free?
Yep.
100%
free.
So how is it paid for? How does that work?
That's a great question. So the way that we make money is we're 100% supported through charities, actually. So we work with over 300 charities, from the United Way and the American Heart Association down to tiny animal shelters, and they will support us through annual subscription fees for us to do all the legal research in all 50 states in order to develop a deep, high-quality online estate planning solution for their donors. And so what this allows us to do is kind of offer those resources to all of those charities' donors as a free gift to the donor. And if they want, they can make a charitable gift, but they don't have to. And the extra bonus is we actually get to offer this service to all Americans, regardless of whether or not they are a donor of the charities who support us, to do their free estate planning.
I love that, because the nonprofits, getting donations for them is a huge thing. And so this sounds like the relationship was started out of those donors who were giving money to the nonprofits. The nonprofits got together with you guys and said, we can help with the estate planning. They are allowed to give a donation as well, but the result of that is that all Americans are open to doing this through this service.
That's right.
Wow. I love that. I'm just saying it out loud. That's such a neat idea there, because it is. I do find a lot of times people don't have any estate planning in place. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second here, but especially if you have children and you don't have a guardianship or something like that set in place, if you haven't made those intentions known, if something was to happen, ultimately that decision could come down to a judge. You might have a family member that would step up and say, hey, I'd like to take custody. But if you don't have those intentions in writing, it could ultimately come down to a judge. So these are those critical documents, those three that you mentioned that are really really strong. What are some of the? I'm going to pivot here and then talk about the nonprofits because that's huge. But before we get out of the individual estate planning there, the free documents, are there things that people should be aware of as you go from state to state, or is this something that anybody across the state U.S. could use?
Yeah, so the beauty of the online platform is you will get a different experience depending on what state you're in. So, for example, some states have more extensive and expensive probate processes, and we will kind of warn users about that. Also, other states might allow for certain kind of no contest clauses or disinheritance clauses, whereas in some other states, they might not hold up. And so depending on what state you're in, FreeWill does all the hard work of figuring out, okay, what are the questions that apply to you in your state, and then surface those as self-help forms for anyone to access for free.
Now, I think this would help anybody who doesn't have any planning in place. Is there a level of advance, like if they start getting into a trust situation, or if they have like special needs children, or I would say those kind of exceptions where you guys would suggest that they go meet with an attorney to do a deeper dive into it, or?
Absolutely. We are so passionate about this that technology can be really helpful to increase access to law, but we also need great trust and estate lawyers. And there are certain circumstances, like the ones that you mentioned, a child with special needs, maybe multiple marriages, being above the estate tax threshold, which Texas doesn't have a state one, but the federal one is at about $11 million per person or $22 million per couple. So there are many of these circumstances in which you might want to see a lawyer. One thing that we do is we actually say anyone, regardless of your situation, can use the FreeWill tool. And actually, at the end, we'll inform you that, hey, if you're in X, Y, or Z situation, take all of the answers that you just populated, print out documented wishes, and we'll help you find an attorney nearby, because you shouldn't use our, basic will document.
I love it. I love it. So that's it. So for somebody who doesn't have anything in place, this is not going to hurt you. In fact, this is going to help you. And then if it's an advanced case where you've got some of these things, they check the box that, we might need to go a little bit deeper. You guys have a network of attorneys that are working with you that you can kind of at least point them or refer them in a direction for it.
Mm-hmm. The right bar associations in your locality.
Love it. I love it. Okay, so we're gonna pause that one, and we're gonna switch over to the QCD stuff, because I do work with nonprofits here in Houston. What as for nonprofit partners, why is something like this important to them?
Yeah, so there are a couple different pieces of this. For many nonprofits, being able to get planned gifts is just so hard. Usually what the motion is, you might reach out to some of your highest net worth donors and connect them with an attorney that you trust, and kind of encourage charitable giving. But fewer than 20% of requests are reported to nonprofits in the U.S., meaning that most nonprofits can't plan for the gifts that might be coming through and can't steward those gifts. And that ends up being a huge problem. The second big problem that nonprofits face is that because it's such a manual process today instead of a online tech solution, that means with limited resources, you can probably only reach out to, a limited portion of your donors. Well, it turns out that the baby boomer generation is so powerful in their ability to impact these charities with planned giving gifts, but not all of them are high net worth individuals. They just might not have kids and might donate 100% of a house that they own to your charity. And so there's huge opportunities that are being lost by nonprofits because they just can't scalably go out to all of their donors. So FreeWill tries to solve both of these things in creative ways. The first one is when someone goes through the FreeWill flow, we make it really easy for them to say, yes, I would like to notify the charity about my gift. And because donor security and privacy is so important to us, unless they say yes, we won't share any information with the nonprofit. But if they do, and they do 70% of the time, nonprofits are able to actually recognize what request came in and be able to follow up with that donor. So that's very different. And then the second piece of what we do is, because it's an online platform, nonprofits are able to reach out to their entire donor base about planned giving all at once and see those results come in, instantly. So an example of this is we work with Defenders of Wildlife and love the organization. They do such amazing work kind of protecting the polar bears down to, the grizzly bears here in the U.S. And since they signed up with us, they've had over 300 donors donate $7 million in bequests to the organization. And this fundamentally changed their, planned giving strategy to be like, wow, we didn't realize that there were so many donors that were interested in giving to us.
I love it. So I know with even the radio station we're on right now is a nonprofit organization. We are sponsored by listeners. That's how we keep the lights on and keep the doors open. But for nonprofits, a lot of times they overlook those married with no kids. And when I say that, from the estate planning perspective, we talk about legacy planning. We talk about leaving passing it down from generation to generation. But a lot of times, if it's married with no kids, but they're passionate about a cause, that's all that's there to leave it to. And so making it easy for them and providing these tools. One of the things we talked about earlier in our industry is full of this jargon. So we're using the shorthand of calling them QCDs, but they're called qualified charitable distributions. For the average person who hears that, what does that mean?
Yeah, so a qualified charitable distribution is a gift that you can make out of your IRA. And once you're 72, thanks to the Secure Act that was recently passed, it used to be 70.5. So what this means is once you hit that age of 72, you're required to take out what's called a required minimum distribution out of your IRA. So this amount changes depending on how much you have in your IRA and what year it is. And when you take that money out, it is considered, taxable income. However, if you give it instead to a charity, it doesn't count to your income at all. It actually just in full goes to the charity. And that's hugely beneficial for both the donor and the charity, right? Charity gets the full amount. The donor has a lower income that they write in for their taxes. So qualified charitable distributions have become much, much more popular in the U.S. over the last couple years even. And one of the big reasons for that is because the standard deduction has changed in such a way that only 10% approximately of Americans are itemizing their deductions now. So in research that we did, we knew that before about 30% were itemizing their deductions and able to write down their charitable gifts, but now way fewer people can do that. So it turns out a QCD is actually one of the most tax-efficient ways to give to charity after you're 72.
I love that. So that is so there are age groups out there that are passionate about causes. They want to give money to them, and sometimes they'll just give it directly to them. But you just mentioned that the RMDs, it was 70.5, but this changed last year. It's gone up to 72. At 72, there's that special event called RMDs where they make us take distributions from our IRAs. This, from what you're saying, sounds like a way that they can make that donation but have an impact on their taxable income as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. So instead of writing a check for $1,000 and taking your RMD, you can make a QCD of $1,000 and not write the check at all, and you'll end up with both a lower tax bill as well as the charity will get more money.
I love it. I love it. So these are those strategies when you're retired and you're looking for ways, if you're going to have to take that RMD anyway, which we do because there's a 50% penalty if you don't, and you do also happen to give to charities, this might be a way to position that. What can you tell us about some of the other things that you guys are working on through FreeWill? I noticed that there's more projects or more things that you're working on. Can you give us kind of a sneak peek of that as well?
Yeah. So we're early days in also building out tools for charities to receive stock gifts and QCDs more easily from their donors. So it turns out in our research that the average person takes over an hour to figure out how to make a QCD because it's so complicated. It's different depending on your financial institution. If you have your IRA in Vanguard versus Schwab, it's a different process. So what we've put together is a tool that helps any user, regardless of their where their IRA is held, to be able to give money to charity easily. So you can log on, fill out some questions, and we'll find the right form for you, fill out the right information, tell you exactly where you need to mail it to. And we did that because we realized that, hey, a lot of people want to support charity in this way, but it's just so hard. And financial institutions aren't particularly incentivized to make it easy. So, yeah.
So I'm going to piggyback on what you're talking about because I've had that experience, and unless the custodian or the fund family has kind of carved off of either donor advised funds or they've got like a charitable giving section, you're essentially taking money away from them. So that it's kind of a hard process. Anytime you move money away from a custodian, there's paperwork involved. There's a lot to it. And so for somebody who's just trying to do something good, they're trying to make a donation, it sounds like you guys you've got these tools that they can use to kind of cut down on some of the time lag there.
That's right.
Now, I see the stock gifts and the QCD. Do you do anything with donor advised funds as well?
That's a great question. Not yet, but we're definitely looking into it. In donor advised funds, sometimes we hear from our charitable partners that it feels really hard to solicit those type of gifts because we kind of have the same incentives problem where the financial institution will make money on the funds that they have, but then once it's donated to charity, they aren't making the basis point fee on it anymore. So we're doing research right now to figure out how we can more easily get money from DAF to charities, which is ultimately where the donors want it to go.
Right. And then they win, they get a tax benefit, the charity gets a tax benefit, so making that process easier is a good thing.
That's right.
Well, so one other thing that you mentioned before we got on the air is that I thought this was interesting, that you guys have had an increase in traffic since the coronavirus fears have kind of rolled out there. Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've noticed that traffic has gone up about 10 to 20% on a week-over-week basis as people are doing the really smart thing of preparing. And, you know, it's so sad kind of how tough coronavirus has been for various communities. My families from Seattle, and it's certainly been impactful there. But that said, one silver lining is that it means a lot more people are getting prepared and their estate planning in place. We frequently hear, I don't have an estate, because when people think estate, they think of a mansion in Scotland. But it turns out, if you have a plant, you have an estate. If you have a pet, you have an estate. If you own a car, you have an estate. And so what we're really seeing is people are kind of taking the time to really get their affairs in order. And ultimately, that's really going to benefit their families and the people that they care about, and hopefully some causes that they care about too.
So if there is one silver lining that we can find out of this, I think that's fantastic. If it's a negative motivator, at least it's a motivator. Because as a financial advisor, I will tell people all the time, you need to get your estate planning done. But what I've come to find out, that it takes kind of a life triggering event, like if they have somebody near them that passes away, and then they go through the probate process and they see how long and drawn out that is, that you're either leaving something that's a plan for them, or you're leaving them a headache. And so, that is a silver lining if this is motivating people to kind of get their affairs in order. What can you tell me about, and I'm looking at kind of some of the stats here, with baby boomers turning 70, where does that play into what you've seen?
Oh, yeah. So we've got 10,000 baby boomers turning 70 every single day in the U.S. And it's been amazing to see how much they enjoy using kind of digital tools. Most of these baby boomers are super digitally savvy, like probably more savvy than I am, on Facebook all the time, doing their banking online. And so what we've seen is this huge uptick that wasn't true for their parents or kind of the generation before in going to digital tools in order to, cost efficiently get important things done, like their estate planning.
So I think when you think about sitting down and making your will, you've got that idea of the mahogany desk, the hardwood floors, walking into an attorney's office, and we're at a day and age where the digital revolution, where you're able to do a lot of this stuff online, even out of state. You guys are doing stuff for people in cross states or different states. That's amazing. Have you been able to see, has that been a roadblock when you're working state to state, or how does that work?
Do you mind repeating the question?
Has it been any roadblocks when you're working with people geographically located out of state, or how has that played out?
Yeah, so it's actually worked out really well because we have attorneys from around the country who work with us in order to kind of improve our products at all times and make sure that we're up to date with the latest and greatest. And that's been a huge benefit to us, and I think such a testament to the legal community that they realize, hey, we kind of have an access to law problem in the U.S. today. There are folks for whom $500 or $1,000 to do their estate planning is just money that they can't afford. And so I think these really passionate trust and estate lawyers kind of join forces with us in order to make sure that we're able to have a high-quality product in all 50 states.
Jenny, as we've got just a few minutes before hitting the end of the show here, what have I forgot to ask you that you'd like to leave listeners with today?
Oh, I think the biggest thing is just, the baby boomers have worked so hard in order to become really the wealthiest generation, and they can potentially solve some of the biggest problems that we face, whether it's, curing cancer or, saving wildlife. And if some of these folks...
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Money Matters Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, visit us on the web at www.moneymatterspodcast.com. drop us a line on SpeakPipe on the right-hand corner. It will receive any voicemails, questions, thoughts, concerns that you have about the show. In addition to this, we recently launched a Patreon campaign. Click on the Donate Now tab to hit the tip jar and find out what Patreon's campaign is all about.